But could it also be that a doctor should give an idea of hope to the patients and not be a doomsday prophet? Because a lot of doctors actually start looking at the problem more graphically than the patients themselves do. Because maybe that, it's like the patient actually goes to a doctor expecting hope for resolution, for treatment, for healing. But if a doctor actually says, oh, this is a big problem, it needs to be done this way, there's a chance of death, then why go to a doctor at all?
See, I think there are two ways of looking at it. One, I think certainly it's not appropriate for us to be dishonest, but I think you should be honest in the sense where you don't scare the patients. For instance, let us say you know that someone is going to die in 3 months, he or she is in the most productive part of their life. I think if you don't tell them there's a chance that you will die in the next year, 3 months, 6 months, he may not plan for the future. See, there are a lot of things he may have to plan, but he's in his productive age and he has to make sure his family or whoever next of kin is taken care of. So if you tell them that you live forever, they may not even think of doing such things.
That could be injustice.
Yes. So I think we have to be honest. Doesn't necessarily have to be brutally honest where you scare them, but I think the reality should be packaged.
No, for instance, I've actually seen it with myself as far as some of my problems were concerned when I came to you, that whenever I thought it was like a life-threatening kind of a problem and because of the symptoms or whatever, like you would always say, okay, just come, let us just put you through some tests and I'm sure that it's not as bad as what you think and we can actually find out and so on. And that actually makes you feel better. And most often after a few days you find out there was no problem at all. Instead, if a doctor were to say, oh, is it so? Okay, maybe you should get admitted tomorrow or, something like that. Because I think that's what a lot of doctors do and that's why a lot of people even are scared of going to doctors.
I think there's some truth to it. I think we should never try to intimidate or scare patients. And if we do realize from the history and examination that it's a relatively minor problem, then you should only give them hope and succor rather than saying that we'll get a battery of tests, you need this procedure, you need that procedure. About 90% of the patients I see do not only read some tender, kind words. It's only 10% of the patients that requires a complex decision-making process.
But you yourself, in your experience, have seen some very minor problems have also ended up in the patient dying, like some prostate operation that went wrong and the patient died, or something else that was relatively extremely minor, but the person ended up dying.
I've seen people who have gone for a toenail removal or an elective knee surgery who have not come out of the operation theatre. It can happen, but that's extremely rare. I mean, it's like you cross the road, you get hit by a bus, and you're dead. You may be absolutely fine. These are all accidents in medicine. They're extremely rare. It can happen. So I think if someone says...
It could be bad for the doctor too, for a doctor who died of AIDS or...
doctors are...
Or hepatitis, it's the same risk for everyone there.
No, there is. So I think there are certain things that cannot be prevented. And if it happens, certainly it's terrible bad luck for the patient. But it's certainly not good for the reputation of the doctor or the hospital either. You go for a minor ailment and you have a serious catastrophe. I think it's terrible for the patient and the family. But I think no doctor would want that to happen.
The final question is, doctor, you always keep talking about health or wellness being from womb to tomb, but do you feel that if as a child or as a young person, if somebody is more careful, has better advice and does things in moderation, that a lot of problems, including problems with the kidney, to the heart, to a lot of other parts of the body also, can be stalled to a greater extent?
I don't have any doubts in my mind.
No, than when people start doing it prime of youth or maybe in their middle age or whatever. It's more important that you take care of yourself when you're very young.
No, I think there's no question that primary prevention of illnesses is far better than secondary or tertiary prevention and care. See, the point is, unless you start young, the effects may not be seen. If you abuse your body as an adolescent or as an adult, drinking, smoking, and very irrational diet, the effects will be there for a long, long time to come. So my point is we should educate children in school about one is lifestyle modification and also about healthy living in the form of sanitation, clean drinking water, clean food. I mean, all the hospitals in this country, including Manipal, Apollo, Medanta, Fortis, probably do not save as many lives as we can save if we have sanitation, clean drinking water, and vaccination. Millions of kids die below the age of 5, millions, because of these things, and which is a fraction of what you spend on a heart surgery or a brain surgery. If we spend that money on sanitation, clean drinking water, clean food, vaccination, antenatal care, then you will save a lot more lives than all our tertiary, quaternary care hospitals put together. And that is the message that has not gone through. We are always happy to see a 7-star hospital coming up, but no one talks about sanitation, drinking water, vaccination, antenatal care. That is the one that will save lives. And I'm happy that the Prime Minister's Swachh Bharat scheme envisages all this. We have always felt the government measures of sort of doing these things are do not get the public's attention. You get attention when you do a complex heart surgery or a complex liver and kidney or a heart and kidney transplant. You are in the newspapers, you are a hero. But no one talks about millions of people who can be saved if you give them clean sanitation, drinking water, and vaccinate the kids, and take good care of the mothers. That's not a high-profile job. You don't become a Shah Rukh Khan or a Amir Khan. You're just a common man doing a sanitation work. So I think that is what has to change.
The final thing is that when people recognize that they have a serious problem like a kidney disease or a heart disease, that's when they actually look around for help and they go to a doctor and all that. But this could be, like you said, when you're crossing the road, you could be hit by a car or a bus or whatever. But these are possibilities. I mean, anybody can suffer from these things. There is nothing like, you need to be rich or poor or healthy or diseased or whatever. Why doesn't everybody foresee these things? And why can't that be part of education? Like anybody could be a victim of these diseases.
Yeah.
Because most of them, when these things happen to them, behave surprised.
There are
like, oh, it's happened to me, kind of thing. Like it could have not happened, but it's happened to me. It's like even if you have been smoking all the time, you behave so, would you say, alarmed and surprised, like, it should have happened to someone else, but it's happened to me. But that's the problem. That's one of the reasons why people don't get insurance, why people don't save for their rainy days, why people don't actually plan their family in a different way. I mean, don't you think that this should be more essential, that people foresee it?
With a lot of trepidation, I'm going to make this comment. I think it's good to have preventive health checks or preventive health maintenance, as I call it. However, sometimes it can be a double-edged sword. Sometimes doing too many preventive health checkups, you might pick up something that's inconsequential and go after it. A good example of that, they introduced a test called PSA in the US for detecting early prostate cancer. And being US the way they are, they went after this test, and whoever had a high PSA got their prostate removed. And now the American Urology Association has told us, it's an official communication, that more people have died of PSA rather than people being saved because you undergo unnecessary surgery, because many of these cancers are extremely slow growing. Probably you'll die with the cancer of natural causes rather than the cancer killing you. But the minute you know it's cancer, then someone goes after it and the complications
like
of the
mastectomy.
Yeah,
when you find out the possibility of you getting
but that doesn't mean you should not have preventive health checkup. I think certainly there's a role for preventive health checkup in high-risk patients. I think if you're obese, diabetic, hypertensive, you have family history, you should definitely get your kidneys checked. If you have a gene for colonic cancer, you should get repeated colonoscopies. If you're high risk for heart disease, you should. But don't look at a 20-year-old woman for heart disease. I mean, then you might find something that you go after which is irrelevant. So these things have to be taken with a pinch of salt, and that's where you have to use your gray cells.
But a lot of people are also living longer.
100%.
And that is giving a wrong sort of a hope to a lot of people that maybe they may not suffer at all. oh, my grandmother has been living for about 80 years now, and my mother is 70 or 65, and somebody else is also living. So there's no possibility of me getting any kind of problems. And these are the kind of logical conclusions people come to arrive at.
To some extent, it's true that if you have good genes, you live longer, but it's not always true. I have a family where the parents are both in their 90s, and 4 of the children are on dialysis or transplanted in their 50s. So I think it doesn't protect you from developing any of these diseases. But in general, if you have good genes, it's good for you, because you cannot buy your genes, you have to inherit that. So I think it's good to have good genes, but environment is equally important.
But why is it that a lot of people don't trust big hospitals these days?
I think in general, anytime you have expensive care and you have to pay from your pocket, people start suspecting your motives. They will start construing this as another form of business. And to some extent, it's probably true. Doctors, we ourselves, in some ways, have lost the trust of the people. I think it will be naive on my part to say that unnecessary testing and unnecessary procedures are not done. But in general, I still have a lot of faith in the medical profession. There are a large number of good, ethical doctors still in existence. There are bad sheep in every profession. But I think we should internally regulate and police ourselves rather than external agencies policing us. So my message is, be compassionate, be ethical, think of the patient first, then you'll be a good doctor.
No, emotion is not good for a doctor in the sense to at least express it in front of a patient. But that could be one of the reasons a lot of patients feel that the doctor is quite impersonal and indifferent.
See, I think there's a difference between being indifferent, impersonal, and emotional. You can still be compassionate without being extremely emotional. I think my mantra is you have to be compassionate. You feel for the patient, but you don't have to react in an emotional fashion. Because the minute you become emotional, sometimes you become irrational. And that's one of the reasons many doctors don't treat serious illnesses in their own family. Whether it's your child, your wife, your father or mother, most doctors would not want to sort of do the surgery or take decisions which are like treating a common cold, cough and all that is different. But any serious illness taking care of, it may be better to get a dispassionate opinion from someone else. Because once you get the emotional angle, there will be some constraints in your rationality. Emotional people are not always rational.
Finally, doctor, is there hope for people in terms of, even if they don't have enough money, with a little bit of modification in lifestyle to having more hope about living better and a lot of positivity, people can at least expect to live a little longer than perhaps their parents have lived or the others have?
There is no question in my mind. There's a lot of hope. I think there's a lot of silver lining at the end of the cloud. Even if I see from my childhood to now, things have changed dramatically. People used to die in their 30s, 40s of communicable diseases like TB, malaria, smallpox, so on and so on, which is not there now. And for any illness beyond a cold and cough, they had to go to Vellore, Chennai, or Madras, or Bombay, and the very rich had to go to the US, which only less than 1% of the population would afford to. Whereas now, most people can get care locally, and we have patients from other parts coming to this. And also now, even for the lower socioeconomic status, the availability of healthcare is far better than what it existed. There are multiple schemes by the government, insurance, so on and so forth, where we see a lot of patients who would never be able to go to the portal of any tertiary care hospital in the past. So I think there is hope. I was at this Lake Nona conference last year, and our prediction is in the next 30 years or 25 years, probably Deepak will live to be 130 if you are born today. Yeah, I think that's the prediction. More than 100 for sure. And most of the hospitals will not be brick and mortar hospitals. They'll be virtual hospitals. And most of the care will be delivered as an outpatient or at home.
That's quite positive, doctor. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
On that
Deepak.
note, let us conclude this show, and thank you very much for having come.
Thank you. It was my pleasure.